And we're back in the car on a Tuesday in July like we never left. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of this miserable, but at least it's not 99 degrees, Tuesday early evening here with me in New York. But once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episodes. Well, it is time. It is time for another baseball episode because the New York baseball world is agog with negativity. The Yanks, had a good start, then they struggled, and then they started playing out of their minds without Aaron Judge, seized control of first place, and then a funny thing happened on the way to parading down the Canyon of Heroes, a la your 2026 New York Knicks. The Yankees all of a sudden lost 9 games out of 10. And you know what that means in Yankee land? The season's over. Boone's got to go. Cashman's got to go. Volpe needs to be sent to another planet. In the immortal words of Kittredge in Mission Impossible, if you talk to every single Yankee fan on any social media app or radio program, I want him manning an outpost in Siberia by the end of the day. Just mail him his clothes. Anthony Volpe, the boogeyman. The Yankees always had a guy like that. My dad, there was certain players that we always would get on because this guy's terrible. Somehow Volpe became the guy. But the Mets are a dumpster fire. All the money spent by my cousin Steve, who's not really my cousin, but my guy, my buddy, my namesake, Steve Cohen. The team is a total disaster. Mendoza's gone. Who knows who the next manager is? Boy, I hope they bring in Joe Girardi. That'd be good. They're not going to hire any more Yankees. They'd hire Don Mattingly, but Mattingly already has a job. But the Mets are a dumpster fire. The organization doesn't appear to have any process, any path back to contention, because they got a lot of money tied up, and we can make all the jokes we want about how rich Steve Cohen is. Nobody in business is in business to just lose hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't give a shit who you are. George Steinbrenner talked a big game, he backed it up, but he was not the owner of the Yankees to lose money. And if there were years where their profit margin was narrow, he was not lighting them up. He was like, we got to do better. We're not in business to go backwards, either as a team, as a franchise, or as a going concern. Nobody is in business to lose money. So the Mets have to figure their way out of this morass. There's a word that's not in common usage, M-O-R-A-S-S, morass. Great word. You wonder why it's not in common usage. But my issue here, as once again I put on my old man hat, even though that's a Yankee hat, pretend it just says old guy here or something like that. My issue is that it seems that most baseball fans, most diehard, legitimate, rabid baseball fans under 40 just don't get it. They don't seem to be able to grasp the concept of a 162-game season. And the other problem is, at the end of any season, they completely forget how the team got to where they got at the end. How did the 2024 Yankees get to the World Series? How did the 2017 Yankees get to a Game 7 in the, American League Championship Series? In 2019, how did we lose in 6? We just forget all of the particulars of every season. And the amount of complaining, the endless whining and nonstop carping. You know how many different times Aaron Boone has been fired by the average Yankee fan since he took over in 2018? I mean, he's been fired hundreds of thousands of times. After every loss, he's gone. And Cashman, who's been the GM since 98. Listen, Brian Cashman maybe at some point is not going to be the GM anymore, but he is what we call a lifer. That is an organizational guy. That is a company man. That is the ultimate company man. He was George Steinbrenner's intern in 1990, for fuck's sake. He's not going anywhere, okay? Maybe he'll be replaced as GM. But I'm telling you, Brian Cashman has a job with the Yankee organization forever. Forever! Trust me on this. I know of what I speak, okay? You can Google what I just told you. He's not going anywhere unless Hal Steinbrenner sells the team, which is not going to happen. So there you go. You're going to be talking about Cashman for the next 20 years. Just deal with it. Just accept it. Move on to something else. Move on to something else. There's nothing wrong with changing a manager. There's nothing wrong with replacing the general manager, right? Boone, he's been there since 2018. They haven't won a World Series. That's good enough. If they don't win at the end of this year, that is good enough. Replace the guy. And if you want Cashman to step down, you want to bring in somebody else, that's also fine. His job is to win a World Series. They haven't won one, if they don't do it this year, in 17 years. This is all true. But it's the level of complaining, and quite frankly, it is the impossible level of entitlement, a word I don't like because I don't really like that word, but unfortunately it fits in this case. If you are a Yankee fan under 40, you have never seen this team lose more than 90 games. You're complaining about an organization that has put a winning product on the field for the last 34 fucking years. They have been playoff contenders for 30, now 33. This will be the 34th year in a row. They have been playoff contenders every single year. I want you to try to put yourself in the shoes, as bad as this is, of the Met fan right now who thought the team was going to have a bounce back year after the disastrous finish to last season. They have a reason to complain. But to give Met fans their due in a negative sense, this is something I remember. Remember, idiot savant, right? I have a good memory. I don't forget stuff. And when the Mets were flying high in 2024, they were 45-24. If they didn't have the best record in baseball, they had the second best record in baseball. But if you listen to WFAN, ESPN New York, and every single Mets page across all of social media, all the Met fans were doing, they were just complaining because Juan Soto doesn't look like the same Juan Soto as last year. And then there was that dumb, it's embarrassing, that conspiracy that he was actually older than his birth certificate. Give me a fucking break. We're going to do birth certificates? Let's find out if Sonny Liston was really as old as they said he was when he died. It depends which of the 3 birth certificates, right? So Met fans were complaining about a team that was 21 games over 500, complaining endlessly about Juan Soto in 2025. And what happened? Team went off. They went off the cliff. And now you're nowhere. Now you're screwed. But the Yankees, 2 weeks ago, when they were in first place by 3 games, they land in Boston, right? It changes fast. Tampa's losing, and the Yanks are winning the first game in Boston. And we're all saying the Yanks are about to be up by 4 games in the East. We are running away with this bitch, right? That's what was going on. But a funny thing happened on the way to that. The Yankees dropped 9 of 10. So in the span of a week and a half, Aaron Boone went from being manager of the year, and Brian Cashman went from being general manager of the year to they're both pieces of shit. They both need to be fired because of a 10-game stretch. A 10-game stretch in baseball is like 1 game of the old 16-game NFL season. It ain't as big a deal as you're all making it out to be. And you don't understand what it's like to be watching the Yankees 17 games out of first, to be watching the Yankees and staying up till 2 a.m. to watch them get blown out by the Oakland A's in August of 1990. You have never done that. You have had nothing but prosperity. You have had nothing but a contending team. You have had nothing but owners who actually give a shit, farm systems that started producing star players, not just fill-ins. This organization is on good footing, regardless of whether Boone or Cashman are in their current positions next year. You gotta take a breath. You gotta take it easy. You have to remember that with the exception of 1998, virtually every baseball season for every team, there are going to be stretches where you play incompetent baseball. You have to have a little perspective here. You just have to. And I was not the most patient fan, but I don't ever remember my old man, who was the biggest Yankee fan I ever knew. He was pessimistic during the games. He always expected to lose during the games. But I don't remember him throwing in the towel and laying dirt on the season because they had a bad stretch. 1985 Yankees went 97-64, right? That's the best team that Don Mattingly was ever on. 3 Hall of Famers: Rickey Henderson, Dave Winfield, and who was the 3rd Hall of Famer? Henderson, Winfield. I wish it was Mattingly. I wish it was Ron Guidry. I'm sorry, Phil Negro, Knucksy, the knuckleball. We had 3 Hall of Famers, and we had Mattingly in his prime, and Ron Guidry winning 22 games. 20% Hall of Fame caliber roster, 97-64. That Yankee team was right there They won a ridiculous game where the Blue Jays, the eventual winner of the American League East, messed up a play in the infield, and the Yanks had a huge rally to win, and we're winning the division. This is great. And then the Yankees lost 8 games in a row. They lost 8 games in a row from that point of September and still ended up with 97 wins. So when you have a stretch where you lose 9 out of 10, the season is not over. The team is not trash. We don't need to do a fire sale. We better be sellers at the deadline. All of this bullshit. There's nothing wrong with being passionate. It's the persistent complaining and the just endless negativity. I don't get it. I don't understand. And I'm taking a guess when I say it's because you haven't suffered through a team where Alvaro Espinoza is your number 2 hitter every day, a 260 hitter who didn't walk and couldn't hit home runs. And that's your everyday number 2 hitter. You're complaining about Volpe. Volpe stinks. I totally understand. But that 85 team with the 97 wins, the 8-game losing streak in the heat of a pennant race with all those Hall of Famers and Hall of Fame caliber players, you know who their shortstop was? Their everyday shortstop was a guy named Bobby Meacham, a 230 singles hitter who I don't even know if he got as many as 10 walks that year. He couldn't play shortstop particularly well either. Volpe is not the problem. He was not the problem any more than Bobby Meacham prevented the 97-win Yankees from getting to the postseason. It had nothing to do with it. You're not that you're barking up the wrong tree. The guy is lousy. I agree. But you have to get perspective. It's critically important. It doesn't mean that you don't care, but you have to take stock of the fact that this is a winning organization. They haven't won a World Series in 17 years, but I think they're still paying for all of that fairy dust during the Tory era because they got so many lucky breaks. Now, if you're a really young Yankee fan, if you're under 35, you probably don't remember what I'm saying, but they were endlessly, impossibly lucky to win 4 World Series in 5 years. If an outfielder was going to trip on a drain pipe in a big game, it was going to happen with them. So there's a little bit of karma. I feel like they're still paying for it. They were fortunate to win in 2009, but they had a huge team. Didn't they win 105, 106 games? That was a dominant team for huge stretches of the season. They did have a slump, though, and there was a point in June where it looked like, well, we got to get rid of Girardi, the usual stuff people were talking about even then. But there was legitimate anger over the fact that they lost in the first round of the playoffs in 2005 with Torrey, 2006 and 2007. Those teams did underachieve. And again, you get to a point where you look at that, and if you want to replace your manager and your GM, that would have been the time. I mean, it's almost stupid to say they could have got rid of Cashman in 2007, but when they missed the playoffs in 2008, right? No problem. That to me is normal. That is normal second guessing. That is normal baseball, back and forth. Arguing about it, whatever it might be. But this team, they just lost 9 out of 10, and we'll see what's going to happen now, going forward. They're in Tampa. They won the first game of the series with Tampa. It changes so quickly. Now, I felt when they were on pace this year to win 99 games, my perception was that they were kind of overachieving relative to their talent level without Judge. With Judge, this is a 95 to 100 win team, in my opinion. Without Judge, I don't think that they're a 90 win team. If you go by WAR, Judge is the key guy, right? Judge is the key guy. He's one of the best players in baseball. Next to Ohtani, most people would probably say that he is the second best player in baseball, certainly when he's healthy. So they had this incredible stretch where they took a 3-game lead after having been down by as many as 5, and Judge was struggling the whole thing. We remember this. And they just played out of their minds. Rice was crushing it, right? Goldschmidt was crushing it. And Caballero. There were so many different people who were just seemingly playing above, what they should be capable of. And Bellinger was doing great. They all stopped hitting at the same time. And Schlittler, who looked like a right-handed Ron Guidry, suddenly he became hittable. Rodon goes down. Chisholm had the slow start, but he looks like, he could get it together. He's capable of going on a tear and hitting, 5 homers in 7 games, like that kind of thing. But this is a good team. They're going to win 90 or more. They're going to get back to the postseason. Judge is not out for the year. You just got to have a little bit of faith. And I understand for me to sit here and say you have to have a little bit of patience. Yeah, 17 years of patience is a lot of patience. I totally understand. But bear in mind, they hadn't won a World Series for 18 years, from 78 to 96. And when that 1996, and I encourage you to look into this and Google this, that 1996 Yankees team was not a great team. They ended at 92 wins. I believe that this year's edition of the Yankees will go over that. But that's neither here nor there. The 96 Yankees had a 12-and-a-half game lead deep into August and almost coughed up the whole thing. They almost choked it away. But they didn't. It got close. It got to a game and a half. They managed to plant their feet, reverse course, and then when they got to the postseason, they got on a run, and the next thing you know, they win the World Series. And that was a surprise. Nobody really expected them to win a World Series that year. Certainly not the Braves, who were 14 games better than them during the regular season. But baseball is very difficult to predict. And all of the rage, all of the anger towards the team, towards the organization. Look, you want to get mad at them and get angry because the cost of seats is so exorbitant. The cost of going to the ballpark, again, there is no counter argument, because it used to be, a lot cheaper to go to a baseball game. This is 100% accurate. You didn't have to take out a second mortgage to take your family to the game. Like, these are the things to, in my opinion, to get frustrated over. Get mad over individual games. I used to lose sleep. The fact that I lost sleep over a team that was dropping 90 games, the 1991 team going 71-91 and completely collapsing in the second half. They quit on the manager. It wasn't very good. Stump Merrill, another organizational guy, but nothing like, either a Buck Showalter who took over for him, or a Brian Cashman, or somebody like that who has been with the organization through some bad, but mostly good. But you don't want to be this way all the time, because I feel like it's almost like there's no way back. And there were Yankee fans in the 90s who were like this, but it seemed as if they were few and far between. There was a caller, the older ones among you know this, there was a caller who called into WFAN, and his name was Jerome Middleman, but he went by Jerome from Manhattan. And he was the most negative, pessimistic Yankee fan. There were jokes made, it's really George Steinbrenner using like a voice changer or something, real funny shit. But this guy, the Yankees won the World Series in 1998. They swept the Padres. That was their second World Series in 3 years. They sweep the Padres in the Fall Classic. And he calls up a half hour after the World Series, screaming and yelling about how it's terrible we won because now they're going to keep Cashman. He's saying this in 1998. He was already against Cashman in 1998. So, yeah, I understand there are some people like that, but it feels like there are just too many fans who are not enjoying any of the perks of being a Yankee fan and the fact that they always field a representable team. I can't stress this enough. I'm sorry I got so upset there, but you understand where I'm coming from. They have fielded quality baseball teams now. The first really good year they had after the dark period of, the kind of 89 to 92 where they were under 500 each year, losing 95 games in 1990, losing 91 after being over 500 in the second half. Here's a little bit of a pro tip. If you're over 500 in the second half, you can't lose 91 games. It means you quit on the manager. That's a no-go. That's a reset the organization kind of thing. Keep Don Mattingly, the rest of these guys can go. Absolutely. But they have been a good team since 1993. They were this close to taking the division from Toronto. And that Yankee team would have made the postseason under the current structure. And then the next year, in 94, they were in the lead when the strike happened. They had a 6.5 game lead. They were probably going to, we don't know, but they were probably going to win the division that year and, get to the postseason in the old iteration where it was just a championship series and then the World Series. The wild card came about because of the strike. So those were the years where I was the crazed, watch every pitch of every game and change social plans so that you can watch a regular season baseball game on a Monday night. Seriously, yeah. I did do that. I shouldn't say it's embarrassing, but that's the kind of fan we're talking about. I wish that people would be able to take a breath and contemplate. It doesn't have to be what I'm saying, but contemplate the notion of how good this team has been for so many years. And the Mets have spent more money And last year ended in disaster, and this year is a disaster. They're going to have to sell a lot of their best players. They're not going to trade Soto, and I don't think Lindor is tradable either. But this was a team that was supposed to at least contend. There were some writers that said, yeah, they should make a nice, return and 90 wins, whatever. And then it's a disaster. So I would say be thankful that you're not the Mets. Be thankful that the Yankees are not in a full-on rebuilding mode where we're thinking, what are we going to do with Judge's contract? We're losing 90 games. The Yanks are not losing 90 games this year. I stand on this. They're going to end up somewhere between 92 and 96 wins. I'm very confident in saying that. You lose 9 out of 10 when you're a good team. You're going to win 14 out of 20 or something like that. It's inevitable because as Goldschmidt and Bellinger and Rice stopped hitting, the switch is going to go. We know that they're going to hit. We know that Rice, like I said with Chisholm, Rice is going to have a stretch. He might hit 10 homers in August or 12 homers. Something like that is going to happen. And Schlittler will pitch better. And Rodon will be back. You know what I mean? It's just all of these things. When you're losing, everything seems terrible. So the next time they go on a winning streak, don't assume it's going to carry them through September because they'll probably slump again. But you have slightly more streaks than slumps. You lose 9 out of 10, you go 14-6 to make up for it, and you split the difference. You just see where you are. It looks like, unfortunately, it will be neck and neck with the Yankees and Tampa. As it was, the Yanks did a great job last year. I think they got to 94 wins, which was really incredible given how poorly they played for huge chunks of that season. And you can find stretches of last year, maybe you don't remember this, where they went like 4-15, where they couldn't do anything right. They couldn't pitch, they couldn't hit. And when they hit, they didn't pitch. And when they pitched, they lost 2-1. Long stretches of last season where they were just awful. And the same kind of stuff, blow up the organization, fire this guy, fire that guy. And yeah, Volpe. Hey, Volpe's everyone's favorite punching bag. What can I do? They tried to prop him up. He seemed to have the stuff because he could hit home runs and a fast runner, and he looked like he had a chance to develop a good batting eye, and he seemed to be a really good fielder. That's the thing that really kills you, because when somebody establishes themselves as a kind of defense-oriented player, you got to be able to play defense, right? They were saying he seemed to be a much better fielder than Jeter because he can move side to side so well, but he's made a lot of really bad, dumb errors that not that you can't forgive them, but if you're not going to hit, you better be fielding. You can't be incompetent at both. You've got to do one or the other. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir on this. I think Caballero is their guy. They were very fortunate to get him. I didn't think, that it was that big of a deal when they got him, but he's got pop in the bat. He's a spark plug kind of player, a hard-nosed player, what they used to call like a lunch pail guy. I love what they used to call a lunch pail guy. Whatever that is, a lunch pail guy. I think it just means that somebody that has a lot of heart and moxie and plays hard every day. And no joke, there are some people. Derek Jeter was a guy who was a lunch pail guy with all the money and the glitz and everything. Jeter played hard every day, and he almost never did not run hard out of the batter's box. Right? Even at the end of his career, he's still going down the line as fast as he can on routine ground balls. And he would have said, well, this is how I learned how to play the game. But that's just what I wanted to say. I do get frustrated. I don't like the negativity, and I'm a Gen Xer. I'm cynical. I'm snarky. I'm sarcastic. But the level of vitriol, the anger among fans for this team and the organization, I just think it's way out of control. And if I could, and I know it's impossible because people are going to always be passionate, they're going to get angry. People were getting mad in the 80s, people were getting mad in the 90s. It just seems like there's a higher percentage of younger fans, maybe because they haven't experienced the team just being dreadful. I don't know, that's just a guess. But a little perspective, just think about the fans older than you who saw this team be shit, who saw George Steinbrenner be called the worst owner in sports. And Steinbrenner was able to hang around a little bit like Jim Dolan. He hung around long enough where he became the good guy again. Jim Dolan's never going to be the good guy. But Steinbrenner became a beloved figure because eventually they turned it around because George put the people who knew what they were doing into the positions to make the decisions. He stopped making the autonomous moves, a lot of which, it sounded good at the time, like signing Jack Clark in the 80s. We didn't need another right-handed home run hitter who struck out a ton. We needed more pitching. But that's beside the point. just a little, 25-minute rant on the state of the Yankees, the state of the Mets, the state of New York baseball, and a plea to enjoy it. Enjoy being a Yankee fan. It's not that bad, and it's not that serious. It's just baseball, right? It's baseball, Susan. Streaks and slumps, peaks and valleys. And I always say, this is not the Jets at 1-4. It's not 1-9 in the football season and you've been eliminated from playoff contention. A 10-game stretch where you play like the 62 Mets, only worse. That's only one game in a 16-game NFL season. I realize there is no such thing anymore as a 16-game NFL season, but when there was a 16-game NFL season, 10-game stretch of baseball represents one game of an NFL season. It's terrible. It's unacceptable. But you know what? You move on. You turn it around. And you get to the postseason. Hopefully you win a division. You roll the dice. You hope Judge is healthy. And you've got the kinds of pitchers that can dominate short series like we've seen from Schlittler, that incredible game he threw against Boston in the first round last year. So we'll just have to see what happens. But let's go Yankees, and just take a couple of extra seconds before going berserk. That's all. This is coming from somebody who used to be screaming and yelling and throwing shit at the TV set when he was a kid. I did all that, and now I just don't think it's worth it, quite frankly. Anyway, I will spare you the exaggerated wrap-up. I hope that I didn't sound too old here. I probably did, or too much of a sort of a crotchety old man, but I have been there. I have done that. And this is a better time to be a Yankee fan than you think. Peace.